It's the next Silence of the Lambs. Oh, good. I love a good cat and mouse thriller. Okay, here we go. FBI, yes. Lone female lead, yes. Hunting serial killers, yes, yes. I love this shit. Oh, so she must be like a Sherlock or Sister Sage, so intelligent that she can see things others can't. Oh, no, she's a little psychic. But not enough that it stops the plot from being contrived, and just enough to have absolutely no relevance to the main storyline. Like, at all. 2024's Longlegs was met with very positive reviews upon release, its biggest claim being its likeness to The Silence of the Lambs, a likeness that I've seen a lot of people take umbrage with. I personally amn't too bothered by the comparison. It's a pretty common trick to compare up and coming films with older established classics in order to pump up the hype. I remember when Hereditary was released and it was compared to The Exorcist, although I think it's closer to The Shining, considering that they share themes of family annihilation and domestic abuse. And I remember when the film critic Mark Kermode had a big gripe with Hereditary because of this comparison, The Exorcist being Kermode's favourite film.
I suspect that the way the publicity campaign has worked for it will not work for it in terms of audiences. If you want to enjoy this best you can, don't think Exorcist, Shining. If there's an Exorcist comparison there, it's Exorcist 3. But
if you are getting annoyed with the comparison between the two films, it's a question of marketing rather than the movie itself. So let's take a look at Longlegs. As I'm writing this, I've seen the film twice, and I have to say I was really disappointed. When I initially saw the film, I struggled to put into words what I disliked about it, but with my second viewing, it really helped. And if I were to sum up my issues with the film in one phrase, it would be all tell, no show. In the opening moments of The Silence of the Lambs, Clarice walks into Jack Crawford's office and we see newspaper trimmings of Buffalo Bill's crimes. Bill skins fifth. This is setting up one of the film's main antagonists as an active killer terrorizing the country, and he is highly sought after by the FBI. The movie is telling us this. However, later in the film, we are shown Buffalo Bill in action when he stalks and kidnaps Catherine Martin. We see how he fakes having a broken arm while trying to get a sofa into his van, and we see how he is sly enough to use Catherine's benefit of the doubt and good nature against her. What would we do in that situation? Wouldn't we have wanted to be a good Samaritan and help out this man in need of a hand? In Longlegs, we're never actually shown Longlegs in action, with the exception of a flashback when Lee's mother tells us everything. And at this point in the film, Longlegs has committed suicide, so what are the stakes? Cinema is a visual medium, and whenever exposition is used too heavily, it can become very tired very, very quickly. In his essay The Storyteller, Walter Benjamin I went to college! Benjamin bemoans what he saw as a shift in journalism from storytelling to just conveying information. Now, obviously, journalism and cinema are two completely different mediums, and although Benjamin was against a more information-oriented journalism, I personally think where the media and news is concerned, it is better to keep storytelling away from the information that is being told, and I don't think I'm alone in that. We seem to be in a crisis in the information age where a lot of media that is available to the masses is incredibly biased.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay!
I do believe that it is the responsibility of media to present the facts of a story without getting into the emotional entanglement that an individual may experience when absorbing that information. Now, I am, just like many people in the 21st century, am a bit of a true crime junkie. I love it. I can't help it. I'm just fascinated by, I guess, just really disturbing shit. But I have noticed that I do have a tendency to absorb this really horrific information, and because I have no personal attachment to what is being discussed, I just forget about it very, very quickly. And I'm sure that is an element of what Benjamin was worried about if we just absorbed pure information without taking into account the sort of personal tragedy of a horrific murder. But at the same time, I do think that it is important to separate information from the storytelling of what is a real tragedy to real people. Because honestly, how would we function today if every time we went on social media and we saw a horrible thing that we just crumble? I think it's sort of our brains protecting ourselves from getting too involved with too much information. Which I'm sure is why we love serial killer movies, TV shows, documentaries, true crime. True crime is a phenomena in and of itself today. I think it's a way that we can explore these really horrific sides of humanity without being personally involved. What Longlegs fails at, in my opinion, is not using the visual medium of cinema to tell its story. Imagine if in The Silence of the Lambs, instead of that amazing and terrifying sequence of Hannibal Lecter's escape from his imprisonment, we had Ardelia dropping the phone, running to find Clarice, and telling her everything that happened. We would lose all of that tension and visceral engagement of Lecter's escape. That sequence shows us just how clever and dangerous he is, but in Longlegs, we're not really shown how dangerous Longlegs is, how he functions, how he commits his crimes. We're just told about it again and again. I think Osgood Perkins is a competent filmmaker. The visuals in Longlegs are not bad, but I do think that the script is the weakest link. Not only are we told throughout the film all of the information that Lee and the FBI have on Longlegs, but there are the other elements of the film that really just didn't work for me. The supernatural elements of the film are kind of lame, in my opinion. Why is Lee psychic? Or, sorry, half psychic. In the first scenes with Lee as an adult, we see her and her partner scouting out another killer on their first day. Lee gets out of the car. She looks at one house in particular. There. He's in there. How does she know that? Because she's half psychic. And isn't half psychic just being a really good guesser? But anyway, so they go to this house, and sure enough, their criminal is in there, and he kills Lee's partner and is then apprehended. But for the rest of the film, Lee's psychic abilities don't really factor into the narrative at all. The big twist at the end of the film, that Lee's mother has been coerced into acting as Longlegs' accomplice, really wasn't that big of a surprise. We had seen Longlegs working in a basement making the dolls, and we had seen that Lee's mother's house had two cars, something that Lee should have noticed. And wouldn't she have found it odd that she could never have gone into the basement in the 1.5 decades it had taken her to grow up and move out? At best, she's letting her feelings towards her mother cloud her judgment, but at worst, she's just not a very good detective, and a psychic detective at that. And yeah, the dolls. I thought the device of the dolls was really over-explained, and again, all tell and no show. On my second viewing, it occurred to me that if Longlegs' MO was planting the dolls to curse the families into familicide, how did he get the dolls into the house before co-opting Lee's mother into helping him do it? But besides that, what I didn't like about the dolls in the film is that it left absolutely nothing to the imagination. Supernatural horror, I think, thrives on ambiguity. Why does Pazuzu possess Reagan? How does Reagan get the crucifix after Chris has taken it out of the room? Who sent the ball to Danny when he was by himself in the hallway? What the hell is going on in there?
Aurora Borealis? Aurora Borealis!
In Longlegs, it's just explained to the point where there is no mystery. It's methodical. It's pretty boring. I also wondered if there was something of a satanic panic to what was trying to be conjured up in the film. He worships the devil, and in the United States, he's allowed to do that. When it comes to occult films in the 2020s, I feel like the fear of the devil in and of itself really just doesn't gel with contemporary audiences, which is why better occult horror films of the past decade have sought to examine our understanding of the satanic panic in more interesting ways. Like in The Witch, we're sort of left questioning whether it's actually a bad thing that Thomason chooses Black Phillip at the end of the film, when we consider the repression and punishment she's had to endure for just being a woman. I, for one, thought.
Good for her.
So, I think the script of Longlegs is its biggest flaw. The filmmaking, as I said, is pretty good, as is the cinematography. I thought the performances from Micah Monroe and Alicia Witt are actually pretty solid, and Nicolas Cage is Nicolas Cage.
Daddy, mummy.
This was not the worst horror film I've ever seen, but it is certainly not the best. And no, it is not our generation's Silence of the Lambs, because our generation is not going to have another Silence of the Lambs. We're going to have our own movies that speak to our own sensibilities and our own time. We're not going to have another Silence of the Lambs, but we're going to have Hereditary, Get Out, Suspiria, Pearl. And if you think that Longlegs really is a future classic, great. Feel free to tell me why I'm wrong in the comments below. And if you liked this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I hope to be back again with another video relatively soon.
Daddy, mummy.
Oh, I'm a cat. I'm a sexy cat.